from Reach Suite. I'm Colin Smith, and you're listening to the Cold Ones podcast. It's a podcast with chilly questions and even colder ice cream. Today, I'm joined by John Eitel, the Chief Sales Officer at Demandbase, former North American General Manager of Canva, and I love Canva very deeply, and University of Texas Road Team Captain. Welcome to the show, John. Welcome to the show.
Colin, so great to be here. Thanks for the intro and even the hot tips from my background there. I don't hear the rowing too often there. I wasn't the captain, but I was going to say I will, profess that I was on the team when they weren't as good as they are today. But don't let facts get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, no doubt. Did you all? I'd imagine row what, like Travis? Or where did y'all practice that?
Yeah, so we'd row down on Lady Bird Lake, aka Town Lake, lake with many names. The one right in the middle of the city. Which is so beautiful. If you're ever visiting Austin, I would say like that's my happy place to go run in the morning and check it out. But yeah, there's several crews that have boathouses down on that lake, and so it's just a great straightaway with no engines on the lake as well. So it keeps it nice and smooth there and perfect for that.
Yeah. I know Lady Bird Lake semi well. I think the thing about Lady Bird Lake that surprised me most is every time I go back, there's another skyscraper across. Like when you come from the I guess from the South Congress side, right, and you're looking over. It's just it gets denser every single time I'm back.
It's amazing how much it's just always changing. But yeah, I agree.
Well, John, you jumped into the ice cream, and I appreciate that. As you know, the Cold Ones podcast is part about revenue leadership, but part about ice cream. And so we always strategically select an ice cream for you. We don't just order something and send it to you. And so the first one that I ordered here was the old-fashioned vanilla bean. I believe it's a Tillamook old-fashioned vanilla bean. And the reason why is because our first conversation was all about putting down the phone around New Year's, reflecting on the year to come and what the new year has in store. And I don't know, I don't think a lot of people still do that, but we do. And so I thought that's a little old fashioned, man. This fits, John.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. I was gonna say it looked amazing. I also I'll save the old fashioned for later. I can't wait to tap into it there. But I had to get it going. It just felt like it just felt right seeing you do this in different inclinations there. So excited about that.
No doubt. So we're gonna start things off with the rapid fire personal. Keep it fun. The reason we do this is, John, I know your team gets to know you, but being the chief sales officer of a brand like Demandbase, not everyone's going to have the opportunity to sit down with you like I am. And I think it's fun to humanize, right? There's so many executives out there, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, don't get to meet them. What are they like? Well, I think it's an opportunity to have some fun and humanize you just like everyone else. So we're going to kick things off with what kind of car are you driving these days, John?
I got the new Bronco after 3 years of waiting for it to come out. I was a 70s Bronco fan as a kid, and I felt like the practicality was never there. So I just felt like this is a kind of a modern throwback of an old classic there.
This is the first car that's appeared twice.
Oh yeah. Who else is driving it as well? Brian
Cotter, the head of global sales engineering at Seismic, is a big Bronco guy. He just got the new Bronco. This is his answer on the question. So I'm gonna have to connect you guys about the Bronco.
Yeah, that's amazing.
All right. You think about a vacation. I kind of think I know the answer to this one based on having talked about vacations before in the past. Beach or mountains?
It's tough. I mean, I want to say both, but I think I actually have thought a lot about wind force. If you couldn't take the cop out, I'd say mountains. I do love surfing, so that's probably where you were going on this. But I do love to ski, so I'm a big winter sports guy. And then once you get to Colorado in the summer and realize they can do so much more when the snow is melted and when the ice is off the ground, it really opens up your mind in a lot of cool ways. The festivals there, the weather gets great. Living in Texas in the summer, it's the perfect time to get out and get to some chilly mountain air. And so if I had to pick one, I feel like you could get more out of you could use a place in the mountains, more time out of the year than you could on the coast.
Dude, I'm with you on that. I've always said if I'm, if I'm able to have a second home, I'm getting it in Charlottesville, Virginia. Something about the Shenandoah, the Blue Ridge Mountains for me growing up as a Virginian is so peaceful. And I don't know, driving along a curvy road, the mountainscape on the side of the road, it's pretty cool. I love the ocean too, but the mountains win for me as well.
Yeah, the Blue Ridge Mountains are amazing too, by the way. So I get that completely there.
Yeah, we're blessed to have them for sure. All right, funniest celebrity encounter, John.
It's a funny one. One of the benefits of being in Austin and probably being old is I've got some cool friends, but one of my friends is good friends with Donald Glover. So others know him as Childish Gambino. And kind of a fun fact about Austin is we have ACL Fest, which is a big hit here. And usually ours are both weekends. And so, if you're a local and you get plugged into some of the scene there, you can get to meet them and catch them doing shows and pop-up events in between those 2 weeks. And so anyways, a friend of mine was like, hey, I'm going to go pick up Childish. He's got a house that he's rented on Lake Austin, so one of the other lakes. Again, another Austin story, but all of our lakes is just one big river that's dammed up in several places here. But the next lake up from the one that I rode on. But we picked him up and took him to Ski Shores, which is a great divey, like fried food, Lake Austin establishment in the middle of the week, on a beautiful Austin day. And it was just so much fun getting to sit out with him on this dock and like catch up with him about like all things going on in his life. Like that week was a neat one because it was the one where he was hanging up the Childish Gambino moniker. So this was like retirement. And that next weekend was going to be the last show he played under it. So it was like cool to talk about that and like the turning the page and what he's going to do next. Cool story. I mean, he's got kids. You think of these artists as like, gods that walk on water, but he's a normal person. So it was kind of cool to hear him talking about like raising kids in LA and should he move to Austin and like what is the school system like here, right? And so like hearing him talk about that, talking about like the death of his father and doing like a ayahuasca trip to kind of like go through the process of grieving. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And the guy's just like so talented. I mean, I was trying not to fanboy too much, but was in awe. And I'd say the coolest part about the story is total Austin moment, and that like nobody bugged us. Like there was obviously people staring and glaring and trying to figure out like what are these two guys doing hanging out with this guy. But at the very end of the day, like one of the couples kind of hung around and waited for us to leave, and basically walked up and said, hey, we're a big fan. Like, if you don't mind, can we take a picture? And he's like, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm with my family. And like, it was just funny to see their faces like in shock of like, how are these guys related? And he's like, yeah, and just kind of walked on. So anyways, that was a funny moment, but it was really cool story. Spent some time with someone who I look up to heavily. And like I said, it was one of those like out of body experiences and moments to just get to talk to him about like his life and like his career. I mean, the guy's done Star Wars, he was Simba in The Lion King. He's done Community. I mean, he's pretty much touched, everything he's touched has turned to gold, and he's just so talented. So it was just fun to kind of get a sense for how his brain works and like kind of what things come up at night.
Dude, that's a really cool story because most of the time, we meet celebrities in passing and it's super surface level, but not get to sit down and actually, like you said, hear how their mind works. And the guy at the echelon like Childish Gambino or Donald, it's Donald Glover, right?
Donald, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he even made that song "This Is America" that I think struck a chord in modern history of like really bipartisan political movement. So that's a cool person to meet and sit down and have a meal with.
Yeah, I was lucky and cool moment in time for sure.
All right, last rapid fire, and then we're moving into the professional fun. What's the most recent clothing purchase you've made?
It probably is. I'm actually a huge fan of lean in a little bit so you can see it here, but gotten into vintage kind of pearl snap looking shirts. But there's a brand called Poncho. It's a Texas brand that does more slim fit, these kind of Western style ones. But I didn't realize I was collecting a habit until I realized I was wearing it all the time. My CMO, Kelly Hopping, always loves to give me grief where she's like, you're always wearing pearl snaps. So I kind of feel like it's become a persona for me.
That's pretty funny. Like pearl snap.
Unfortunately, whenever we do podcasts, yeah.
So pearl snap being like, instead of like this being a normal button, it's like a pearlescent kind of.
Got it. I was gonna say, let me lean in, and it's like a kind of Western style.
Oh my gosh, I see it. Texas all the way through. You're from Texas, right? Like born and raised?
I've kind of fit in quickly. I've been here most of my life. Northeast is where I was born. Started my journey in New Jersey, lived there till age 10, and then moved from the Northeast to Texas. And so grew up on the Texas coast, which I think is sometimes kind of wild coming from like the Northeast. My cousins were all like, are you riding a horse? And I'm like, I surf, which kind of blew people's mind that you could have coastal edges of Texas there, but it's a big state. It borders on Mexico and the coast, and has a lot of diverse terrain. So it was great there. And then got to Austin, via UT, and kind of just never left here.
It's a great spot, man. I understand why. All right, thank you for some rapid fire. That was a fun one. Learning about Donald Glover too. So we're gonna jump into professional. Really understand under the hood, right? Who's John Eitel, and how did you get to becoming the chief sales officer at Demandbase? So as we bring out the second ice cream, I think you put them both on top. So we're gonna talk about the second ice cream again.
Yeah, please do. As you say, I've mixed it together and it's becoming a mess. So but give me time to catch up to you here.
It's the Earl Grey tea Van Leeuwen ice cream, and the reason that I got this one for you is kind of similarly to the first one being a little old fashioned. I thought, John's a very thoughtful guy. I can see him sitting on his patio in Austin, Texas, with a leather bound book, maybe a cigar, and some Earl Grey tea. And so I saw that one. I was like, I'm getting that for John. How is it? Earl Grey tea.
It's great. I was going to say, definitely hitting the spot here in the perfect for my afternoon here.
Good, man. Good. All right. So you spent time at Canva, which I use a lot. I'm very familiar with the platform. And I think I would say Canva fits in the category of pretty PLG native, like a very well-known PLG success story. They figured it out for sure. I know that's most of the folks I know who use Canva entered through a product-led growth motion, not through a sales motion. So it must be interesting joining a sales, and I didn't know you were at sales-led companies before Canva, but now you're another sales-led company. It's very sales-heavy, very sales forward. I'd like to kind of dive into what you think the pros, cons, or just the differences of being a revenue leader at a product-led growth company versus a very sales-led growth company. How's that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, look, I've got lots of thoughts, and the Canva journey was an exciting one for me, and probably one that I talk about a lot and I'll remember for forever. And we got to do some fun stuff when I was there. I joined them when I first decided to move to sales led. It was completely PLG. It was completely actually aimed at consumer, which was kind of interesting. And so when I got a reach out about joining them to go build out a region, build out a sales focus, I took the call largely because I love a great entrepreneur story. I spent a lot of time mentoring and advising entrepreneurs. So I'd heard of Mel and Cliff, this young couple from Australia that was kind of challenging and changing the world. Took it more like just wanted to get to know them and understand, but I was like largely thinking when I walked into the conversation, like, this is not a fit for me. I've never done consumer. And I'll tell you about like why, I like this and why I like what I'm doing now. And it kind of fits the kind of a common theme for me. What I say, like, I went into it with like this is a non-fit most likely, but let's just see what they have to say. And I was like quickly just surprised at their their tenacity, their kind of like your rebellious thinking, which was pretty cool, but their stories shifted and changed in a cool way. They created an easy to use design tool for everyday people. I use it as well, like still to this day, and will continue to use it, and it gets so much more powerful every day. But they gave away free to the world. They gave away free, thinking that everybody couldn't afford, Photoshop. Everyday people needed something that was an alternative that was easy to use, and it just took off. And then their next kind of play was, kind of 6 years in, 5 years in, they were like, let's see how we make money at this. And so their kind of initial thinking was that, SMBs have access to designers or creative teams or Photoshop. So like, sell it for $9 a month to kind of SMB audience. And, the hope is that, if my wife wanted to open up a cupcake shop because she loved to bake, she'd quickly find out that she needs to create store signage, flyers, all those things that we need. And that's what it's perfect for at $9 a month. Every, kind of entrepreneur, SMB, would want to use it. What was cool, and when we came into contact, was they started seeing it showing up at big businesses. So they saw like folks of, teams of like 40, 50, 60 people, starting to use the software at big companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, like you name it. And so it's kind of wild for them because they were like, we never thought this would end up in enterprise, right? So they accidentally kind of found themselves kind of being brought to work. And that was where it was kind of similar to Dropbox probably in the early days, where everybody started to use Dropbox, but they hated SharePoint. So they were like, I'd rather just use an easy file share that I know how to use, for my personal life, I'll bring that in. But we went out and we interviewed all these users at these big companies and said, hey, why are you using this? Because you've got designers, you've got graphic design teams, marketing departments, agencies, you've got resources in abundance. And what we found out was these were everyday people like you and I, Colin, that were like, I need to create a presentation or a pitch deck. I need to create a social post. I need to do all these things. And I went to the design team, and the design team said, yeah, great, get a ticket in and we'll get you in like 3 to 6 weeks, right? And so that person's like, I've got a pitch tomorrow to an oil and gas client, or this, kind of unique vertical. I need to change the deck to represent this. I don't have time to wait 3 to 6 weeks. Let me go do it myself. And so that was kind of their genesis story of their enterprise offering of like, okay, maybe there's something here,
Easy to use. It's so easy to use.
Yeah. So intuitive. And it really was like a neat aha moment. I think like when you are moving up market, when you're moving into enterprise, it's important to like not try and lead the user or lead, your audience. Like if you can harness natural gravity and momentum, like you're going to win more times than not, right? So it was great for them to see that. And so we went out and built a whole new product. We built a whole new offering. We realized actually the company is based in Australia. They had been trying to stay kind of true to their roots and only be in Australia. And like their largest addressable market was in North America. So it became like very apparent that they needed to build a sales team to complement their PLG motion. They needed to have, boots on the ground and feet on the street here in region, here. And then eventually we opened up an office in EMEA, which was, was part of my charter too. But it was great to kind of work through all of that with them and add again to, what they had already kind of going in their favor and just really kind of capitalizing on that momentum. And so, in the 3 years I was there, like we took the company from 500 million in revenues, actually 250 to 500. So doubled once, which I was like, that's crazy, but let's try it. And we did it. And so they said, let's do it again. Let's go from 500 million to 1 billion. And I remember even like first year, I was like, it's just math. You don't take 6, 7 years to get here and then double the year after, right? Especially when the numbers are these big. But they had some great things going for them. We did benefit obviously from the pandemic. Like when I was doing this too, another fun part of the story is that I flew out, onboarded for 3 weeks, flew back with a plan to open up offices and hire people. And I flew back on the last plane out of Australia before they shut down the border. So like my story with Canva, also was, focused around me, kind of building from the ground up, scrapping it out, with very little resources, which was kind of a fun part too. Like I've got an entrepreneurial background. It's been a while since I've had to flex or use that muscle, but the story was like, let John hire 30, 40 people. We'll send them to Australia for onboarding. We'll kind of build a culture kind of nucleus, and then we can start to work off of that. And like the borders got shut down. It was like, send John 50 laptops. You now do onboarding. You do, hiring. You do, everything from start to finish. And so it was great to, see not only revenues growing, but the team size growing. We opened 2 offices here in the U.S. We opened up an office in London as well. So I mean, it was a lot, but it was a lot of fun while we were doing it.
That's a great story, and cool to be able. I mean, obviously, being the general manager of North America, I imagine your DNA was on it to some degree, but it sounds like you really shaped, I would say, the second act of Canva, from going from a fun personal tool where my friends who are teachers and my friends who are marketing managers use it all, like, to an enterprise solution. One of the questions about, I think, PLG organizations or organizations that had a very strong PLG product and are transitioning into a sales-led product such as Canva, is around how the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
Rules of engagement. It's a frustrating topic from everyone that I understand. I have not been at a PLG to sales-led transition company, but can you walk me through a little bit of, like, how did you architect and orchestrate your sales motions, your revenue operations to deal with this multi-million person per customer base, and then bring them into sales?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, there were so many cool things at our disposal. When I was there, there was 50 million monthly active users. I mean, that's the size of, small countries, right? Actually not really small ones, but there was this
That's
power.
crazy to put it like that, by the way.
Yeah. And you're right. There's these things that are going for you. And so it's all about, like, really understanding and embracing, the things that are kind of going for you. ROE is one part. I think it actually goes even further back to that. Like, ROE is like the bad symptoms and signs when this got out of control. But I think you got to set, the right kind of philosophy around this, because I do think, like, when I hear the ROE conversation, which I did hear it, and I hear it often too, it's because everybody's worried about, like, cannibalization and attribution. And are we taking from one to give to the other, right? And I think you have to come at it with a different mindset, even, and you have to be mindful of that. Like, I don't think, like, forget about it, throw it out there. Like, you don't want to take from, one number to pay the other one and feel like you're winning, right? You have to make sure that you build models that are additive, right? And actually create more user adoption, right? And so I'd say it's important, like, and this was one of my key things, is I had to own, users in all the different groups, but have the ability to grow users on this new platform.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was in a fight with my peer in the consumer business or in the education business saying, like, hey, those are my users, right? Exactly. And, let me steal from you to make myself feel good and, like, pump this up. Like, I needed to be owning of all of this here and being able to think about, like, how do we drive this towards, from free users to paid users. And so, like, my big metrics and the company's big metrics, like Canva's 2 North Star metrics, are monthly active users and revenues, right? And so, like, you have to think about, how do you grow both, right? Like, I need to be additive, not taking away. So I can't say, hey, let's just take this whole college of users and, like, sign them up as a business. And then we just grew revenues because we got them to pay more, but the users are still the same, right? So I had to think about how to grow both of those things, and I had to have ownership for both of those things. The other thing, when you're coming in and you're the first sales hire in this, like, having the ability to have, like, the right level of conversation with the leaders and take them through this change journey. Like, the founders were awesome. Like, they when I joined, were 32, 33, so young, still kind of new in their career journey. They'd never done B2B, so they hired me as a B2B kind of expert. And so we had to have, like, a lot of dialogue and trust around, like, how are we going to build this? How are we going to scale this? And I had to probably do more evangelizing internally than most people really think about. I mean, I think actually when I joined, I was the first sales hire as, like, the head of North America and the GM here for the enterprise offering and the territory. I was, like, the only sales hire in, like, 500-600 employees, right? And so, like, I've never been at a company where sales was so low representation in the population. And so, it was kind of wild when I first went over to Sydney for those 3 weeks. Thankfully, kind of went all in on it. But I was, like, going to, like, dinners, happy hours, meeting with the teams, like, truly trying to get them to understand, like, why this is so important to the company and why, if we can crack this code together, you win. And I think, like, once people kind of saw that and bought into it, they were like, this is great. And we had to make time for all the company meetings. We would talk about, like, what does winning look like at Canva? And it was like, we have to highlight win stories, just like all of us do probably in our, kind of regular B2B companies. But, like, I had to, like, really quickly figure out, like, Canva values, making an impact in the world. Like, if you follow the company, you'll see it. The founders see this as this great vehicle for changing the world. They want to, grow users, and they want to grow, revenues. And so, like, we would highlight stories of, like, American Cancer Society. Like, we want to deal with them where it was, like, all of their volunteers, and all of their employees, because they are, even though they're a nonprofit, they have, I think, thousands of employees as part of it. And then their donor network, like they were like, we want to extend this to everybody, and we want to give them templates that are branded for them so that they can do all this great work, and let's give them a great price on it and like make it all win-win for everybody. But it's like, oh my gosh, we just added 10,000 users, helping one of the most like highest regarded causes in the world, right? And we just empowered, those users to design more effectively. And so it was kind of like, how do we find use cases, that fit winning? We weren't going to pick like, Philip Morris, like we just signed up 10,000 people at Philip Morris.
Thank you for smoking.
Yes, exactly. That wouldn't have made my story, and then probably wouldn't have been a customer for us, honestly. But that was what I had to realize quickly is like, what is the company value, and how can I make this story one that everybody can relate to, where they're like, okay, I get it. Like, this is why we want to build a sales team. This is why a sales team is additive, because if we can win at consumer, and we can win at education, if we can win at small business, and then we can win at large enterprise, like that's our path to really taking over, the world and having all these, great stories of people using the platform.
Well, I imagine so. There's two big lessons I'm gleaning from this conversation. One is very operational heavy, which is have one person own all of it, so there isn't the fighting, the brother sister fighting over the pie. John Eitel owned the whole pie, and so it was against John Eitel's benefit to try and take from one the benefit the other, which is I think that is actually a lesson to be learned there. The second one though is grassroots efforts of getting into these puritanic. I'm sure Canva, like Figma, like a lot of the other design platforms, like a lot of creatives, a lot of people who are, very left brain, sales people, I'd imagine. I don't, you don't have to confirm that, but you have to get that and talk to them. Hey, what's your mission here? What's your personal mission here? And I'd imagine a lot of them are like bringing design tools to the world. Well, great. Sales is a growth lever to help them.
We help them with that, right? I'm going to accelerate that vision here. I want to make you more effective at what you want to do.
Yeah, so you got on the grassroots level with some of these folks who are probably puritanical, like direct to consumer friends, and help show them how your initiative would spark that.
I think actually just like one last comment on this, because you're all the right things, Colin. But I think like, look, I had my share of like hard days and like battles that I had to kind of, go through. And battles is a bad word to use, but just like healthy tension. Our CFO oftentimes is like, gosh, building a sales team's expensive. Like, this is really like, we're paying people commissions. We never had to pay commissions. Like, why is, what's impacting this? And so it meant like I had to educate him in this journey. And there were often, a lot of times there were conversations around like, could we just change the app and then everybody would just do it themselves, and then we need a sales team. And it was, again, like, inside I'd have this big kind of, Cheshire cat grin of like, all right, we're going to have the Genesis conversation again. Does a sales team need to exist? Okay, yes, I got it. But we would go through it. And I mean, it was easy to just use data to back that story. And I think anybody who is taking a PLG product into enterprise, like the cool thing that but worked to my favor was I identified these stall points. And, I think the stall points are like, someone will go out and plot a credit card and they'll probably go use your tool because it serves a need, and they want to go the easy route, and they don't want to go get, kind of buy-in from people above. And so, kind of rogue IT purchases happen often, but they only scale to so many users, because again, if they do, then you tip the radar of like procurements, then you have to get corporate buy-in, security needs to look at this, right? And so like, we started to see these stall points of like these big accounts that had thousands of users. I mean, again, Amazon at the time when we were working with them had hundreds of thousands of users using Canva. And I was like, they have 2 million employees right now. Like, we are just scratching the surface here.
Wow.
But when I would go to to the founders were like, yeah, like we went to bed last night and there was 50 users. Tomorrow we'll go to bed and wake up and it'll be 70, and then the next night it'll be 100. And I'm like, it's always going to be 50. Like, these are always cap out at this like stall point, because that's when someone needs to go to their boss and ask them to get alignment and budget and get security on board, and that's when you need a sales team, right? And so I think back to the point of like, how do you make sure that you're driving value and not taking credit for someone else's work? It's like, okay, like let's not waste sales usage, the sales, kind of time on small companies getting adoption. Take, when Microsoft has 50 people, spin up a team in their product org, how do we go meet with them as quick as possible to say like, hey, can we scale this out to all the other product orgs within Microsoft? Like, let's have that, broader discussion. How do we enable it the right way? That's what a salesperson's job would be in that situation, not, knocking on the door to say, can I get one user, at $15 a month to sign up? Like, that's a bad use of a salesperson's time.
High leverage activity, right?
Yep.
Not going to, Julia's regional bakery and saying, how can I go from 4 to 12, but how can I go to Microsoft? How can I get from 12 to 1200? Yeah. Last question I want to ask, success and selling is definitely a team sport. When you look across your career from Rackspace to Canva to now Demandbase, what are some of the support roles, the reps, the SEs, the ABM managers? Like, who are some of the folks that you want to shout out, that you want to give a moment to? Like, I really appreciate these folks supporting my team and my success along this journey?
Yeah, look, I think that's such a great question. Like, obviously, like every seller should go hug their, SC team. Like, I think if you have a very technical product, like they keep us honest, they keep us out of trouble, and I think like they do the hard work in a lot of cases of figuring out like how to connect with a technical buyer and make them feel comfortable, right? And so I think like, shout out to them. CSMs, again, I feel like just there's such a, commodity, and there's always weird tension between kind of sales and CS in some orgs, but I'd say like they're so important to making things go right. And I think especially if you run a high land and expand environment, like you want the best partners in crime on the CSM side. And so that's a big one for me. And then look, SDRs. I just actually did a company-wide meeting this morning for all our new hires, and there was, folks of all different audience in there. But like I said it then, I'll say it again. Like SDRs, should be the lifeblood of your business. Like they're where every kind of first conversation start, and they can have such a big impact if you hire the right ones. And if you invest in the right ones, they're going to be your future bench and talent. And so I think that's what I would say is like, make sure you shout out those folks, support them. Those jobs are hard too. I would say like the SDRs, I feel so bad for these days. I just feel like jobs only getting harder. Technology is making it tougher. Buyer aversion is a real thing.
Yeah.
And so it's tough when you're coming out and that's your first job, in your career and getting punched in the face, right out of the gates.
Yeah.
Like it's tough to keep getting up again and again. So, shout out to the folks that do the hard work and really want to hone their craft and get good there.
Well, I know Kyle, head of SC, sales engineering at Base. I'm gonna shout him out when we post this. And if there's a CS leader and SDR leader that you want to shout out, I'll give them some love as well.
Oh man, yeah. Kevin Rooney's my head of SDR and is just the man. And so, really great on that. And then Angel Strohmeyer. But they are the leaders, the fearless leaders of those teams, and they do such great work for us. And I could say it's probably that way amongst all the different groups I've been at. Like those are some core functions that you just need strong partnership.
The ice cream looked great. You did awesome. Thank you so much for making time in a busy schedule. Tell the audience they're going to be listening to this. What's going on in John's world for the next year?
Yeah, lots of exciting stuff. So thank you. Love the formats. I told my wife about it. Actually, we were at a concert last night, and I was behind to get you my address to send the ice cream. So thanks for your patience there. But she was so excited to hear about the format. So love that you're getting started on this and already getting so much traction on this. This year's gonna be a fun one for us. Like we are going through a lot of change and transition, just like everybody else, adapting to the market conditions. But I think we're setting up one of the best years ever for demand base. So I'm excited about the team we have in place, the structure and strategy that we're putting out there. Just got back from RKO, which is amazing. After 4 years, we finally got everybody kind of face to face, and like my tank is full, and look, the team I think understands like where we're going and why, and that really helps out a bunch. And so we're going to be doing a lot of that. I think there's a lot of travel on my next couple of quarters too. We've got Forrester, Gartner, Adobe summits. I'm getting over to London, around the summertime to be able to catch up with my team over there. So yeah, lots of travel, but I would say like excited about the road ahead. Excited to have some of the chaos of 22 and 23 behind us. Hopefully, this is an even bigger and better one for everybody out there listening. So looking forward to making it happen.